Greetings and welcome to INFODOME, where we curate facts about a wide selection of topics for you to feed your curiosity. In this series, we are travelling through time to give you facts about some of the more interesting kings and queens of England. Richard the Lionheart may have lived several centuries ago, but his legend still goes on today. Like any teenager, he rebelled against his own father, who was king at the time. Later, when Richard himself became king, he famously led the Crusades in hopes of winning Jerusalem for the Christians. This English king, who barely spoke a word of the language, also decided prior to his death that parts of him were to be buried in various places. Some loved him, some hated him, but he did hold the throne for nearly a decade. Let's take a look into his life. Richard I was born on September the 8th, 1157, and was known by quite a number of titles and names during his life. He is most known today as Richard the Lionheart. Richard was the third son of Henry II and was given the Duchy of Aquitaine in France at age 11. His father was King of England and Northern France, with Philip II at the time ruling over the remainder of France. Richard quickly became well known for his exceptional political and military ability. He won fame for his knightly prowess. He joined his brothers in the Great Rebellion of 1173 to 1174 against their father, who invaded Aquitaine twice before Richard submitted and received pardon. After his older brother Henry died suddenly in June 1183, Richard became heir to England, as well as Normandy and Anjou in France. His father wished him to yield Aquitaine to his youngest brother John, but Richard would not surrender the duchy in which he had grown up, and even appealed to the young King of France, Philip II. In November 1189, the young Richard openly joined forces with Philip to drive his father to acknowledge Richard as his only heir, and forced him to his death on the 6th of July, 1189. Richard received Normandy on July the 20th and the English throne on September the 30th. Richard, unlike Philip of France, had only one ambition: to lead the crusade prompted by his Muslim counterpart Saladin, who captured Jerusalem in 1187. His father led the first two successful crusades, so Richard knew this was his first act as king. He had no conception of planning for the future of the English monarchy and put up everything for sale to buy arms for the crusade. Open war was averted only because Philip also took the Crusaders' cross. Richard dipped deep into his father's treasure and sold sheriffdoms and other offices. With all this, he raised a formidable fleet and an army, and in 1190 he departed for the Holy Land, whereby he only managed a truce with Saladin due to a split in alliance with Philip II's army. Richard knew his absence in England would not go on any longer, and after 2 years he sailed home. A storm drove his ship ashore, and he was captured in Vienna in December 1192, later imprisoned by Leopold, the Duke of Austria, at Dürnstein Castle. Later, he was handed over to the Holy Roman Empire by Henry VI, who kept him at various imperial castles. Under the threat of being handed over to Philip II of France, Richard agreed to the harsh terms imposed by Henry VI, a colossal ransom. The raising of the ransom money was one of the most remarkable measures of the 12th century and gives striking proof to the prosperity of England. A very high proportion of the ransom was paid, and in February 1194, 2 years after his imprisonment, Richard was released. He returned at once to England and was crowned for the second time on April the 17th, due to the shame of his captivity. Within a month, he went to Normandy, never to return to England. His last 5 years were spent in warfare against Philip II, interspersed with occasional truces. Richard took Dieu est mon droit, God and my right, as his motto, which is still used by the British monarchy today, echoing his earlier boast to Emperor Henry that his rank acknowledged no superior but God. It was Richard's irrationalism that brought him to his death at the early age of 42. Richard laid siege to many of the castles of nobility in France, and in an unlucky moment was wounded. He died in 1199. He was buried in the Abbey Church of Fontevraud, where his mother and father were also buried, and his effigy is still preserved there. Richard was irresponsible and hot-tempered, with huge amounts of energy, but capable of great cruelty. He was more accomplished than most of his family, a skilled soldier, a skillful politician, and capable of inspiring loyal service. He had no legitimate heirs, and so the crown was left to his brother, John. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We have many other videos on monarchies, so please have a look at our playlist to discover more. Until next time.